Welcome to this explainer. Look, I have been lugging heavy amps into beat-up vans, playing in local bands, and recording albums for over 30 years now. I'm not a studio engineer or a technician. I'm just a guitar player who got a little too obsessed with the physics of tone along the way. And today, we are going to tackle that absolutely hair-pulling moment. You know the exact one. You sit down to record your guitar at home, you play it back, and it sounds thin. It sounds small. Honestly, it sounds like a mosquito trapped inside a tin can, and it sounds absolutely nothing like those massive classic rock records we all grew up spinning on our turntables.
We have all been there. You plug in, you hit a big ringing A chord, and you can literally feel the air move in the room. But on playback, it just sounds completely deflated. So what do? You blame your audio interface. You blame your amp. You curse the untreated room you're sitting in. You probably go out and buy 5 different overdrive pedals, swearing every single time that this specific one will finally be the magic bullet. But here is what you have actually been missing all along. And it's a very practical thing Jimmy Page figured out way back in 1968.
Let's step out of your only home recording setup for just a second. We are taking a quick trip back to Headley Grange, that drafty old poorhouse in Hampshire where Led Zeppelin tracked some of their most earth-shattering sessions. You have to remember the context here. They didn't have Pro Tools, they didn't have infinite digital tracks on a laptop screen. They had heavy reels of physical tape, a real physical room, and a really deep understanding of how sound actually moves and behaves in a space.
Page wasn't just leaning on his Gibson Les Paul and a cranked Marshall amplifier to do all the heavy lifting for his tone. He developed this highly specific, deliberate habit of recording the exact same guitar part multiple times. He would physically play the take and then play it again, layering those takes over each other to create this impossibly thick tone. This wasn't some happy accident to cover up a bad performance, and it definitely wasn't a cheap digital trick. It was physical repetition, built entirely by hand.
Let's look at how he actually executed this. Take the winding, nasty main riff on Black Dog. Page didn't even use a traditional guitar amp for that tearing bite. He ran his guitar straight into the recording console, drove the circuits hard, and then he physically recorded the exact same part 2 or 3 times. He played the riff, stopped, rolled the heavy tape back, and sweat through playing it all over again. Same riff, same sound, just stacked heavily on top of itself. And man, he took this to the absolute extreme on later tracks. Think about a masterpiece like 10 Years Gone. To get that deep, heavy orchestral weight, he stacked up to 14 different layers of guitars. 14! A Fender Stratocaster, an acoustic, even an electric sitar, all built up into this undeniable wall of sound. Just let that sink in for a minute. 14 separate physical performances to build an absolute symphony out of 6-string instruments.
Page actually talked about the philosophy behind this. He said he didn't want the tone to just aggressively punch the listener in the nose with sheer volume. Because let's face it, one extremely loud, piercing guitar track can actually get pretty harsh on the ears after a few minutes. Instead, he wanted to draw the listener in. He was after these rich, feathery, complex textures that a single guitar just cannot physically produce on its own, no matter how loud you turn the master volume up.
Now, a huge piece of this puzzle comes down to human error. Eddie Kramer, the legendary engineer who worked heavily with Zeppelin, noted that they deliberately left the mistakes in. A slightly muted string, a tiny bit of fret buzz, maybe an accidental vocal bleed in the background. Keeping those raw human imperfections in the take is exactly what gives a track its breathing, living character. Total, sterile perfection was never the goal.
So, practically speaking, why does this happen? Why does stacking a bunch of slightly imperfect, messy takes make your rhythm tone sound like an absolute monster? Why do our ears actually prefer 2 flawed performances over one mathematically perfect, pristine track?
Well, think of it exactly like a choir. If you have one person singing a note and you just turn the volume knob way up, it is still just one loud, isolated voice in a room. It doesn't sound bigger, it just sounds louder. But if you have 20 people singing the exact same note, it sounds massive. The minute microscopic differences in pitch and timing from each individual singer create this lush, thick sound that completely wraps around you and fills the room.
Let's walk through how this actually builds when you're sitting at your desk hitting record. When you lay down your very first take, you are just providing a single, isolated source in the room. It has one specific sonic footprint, a very distinct set of highs, mids, and lows that just sit entirely in one spot. It's your anchor. But on its own, it's kind of lonely.
Now, when you go back and record that second take, something really crucial happens. Because no human performance is mathematically flawless, you are going to have tiny timing variations. There will be slight pitch differences. Your fingers are pressing the frets with slightly different pressure this time around. Your heavy pick is striking the strings maybe a fraction of a millisecond later than it did on the first run.
Throw a third take in there with its own microscopic changes in pick attack and finger pressure, and something pretty magical happens to human hearing. The brain literally stops hearing three separate guitars. Instead, it groups them all together and perceives them as one single, massive, breathing instrument. You are building a unified wall just through sheer human variation.
Now here's the absolute crucial point, so listen closely. You cannot just copy and paste your first track to save time, because when you do that, you get phase cancellation, which basically means the identical sound waves just fight each other, pushing and pulling at the exact same time. And it sounds exactly like you just threw a heavy moving blanket right over your amplifier. It sucks the life right out of your tone, so just don't do it.
Turning up the volume fader on one perfect track just makes it louder, which, as we established, does not fix a thin tone. But physically playing the track again, sweating through a brand new performance, creates stereo width, which simply means the sound feels like it is physically stretching across the entire room, coming at you from the far left and the far right at the exact same time. It feels like a physical beast in the room, not just a loud digital file.
What you are doing is essentially tricking human perception. A single perfect track sounds brittle because it lacks that natural variation that tells our brains, hey, this is a real physical thing moving air. Our ears evolved over thousands of years to process complex, messy environments. A perfectly sterile, single digital track just doesn't sound real to us. To our primitive brains, it sounds completely fake. The massive payoff here, and the whole reason I'm sharing this explainer with you today, is that you do not need a vintage 70s analog console to fix your brittle tone right now. You don't need a room full of expensive rack gear. You can get this exact same classic rock studio magic using the very basic, simple setup you already have sitting on your desk. Let's break down exactly what you can do today with zero extra gear. Step 1, record the part. Step 2, play it again from scratch, but do it without listening to the first take so you don't subconsciously try to copy it. Step 3, pan them apart, meaning you use your software to push one take all the way to your left speaker and the other take all the way to your right speaker. And boom, you're done. By spreading those imperfect, messy takes to the far edges of your speakers, you actually leave the entire middle wide open. Now your bass guitar, your kick drum, and the lead vocals have room to shine. They no longer have to fight a loud, muddy guitar sitting right there in the dead center. Everything suddenly gets its own dedicated space to breathe. Now, I always hear the purists asking, is double or triple tracking just a studio cheat? Are you just covering up a player's inability to get a huge sound out of a single great amp? Is this whole process just a crutch for guys in home studios who don't know any better?
I can tell you straight up, it is not a cheat at all. It is absolute proof that the best recording techniques were never about hoarding vintage gear or buying $50,000 microphones. They were simply about understanding how human perception actually works. It's about feeding the sound to the human ear exactly the way the brain wants to hear it.
So, the next time you're sitting alone at your computer, feeling frustrated by a small, thin, mosquito-like sound, what is your move going to be? Are you going to keep endlessly fiddling with digital amp models? Are you going to buy yet another overdrive pedal? Or will you just hit record, physically play the riff again, and let your own messy human imperfections build the wall?